Good morning, good afternoon, welcome. Today we are talking about ablaut in Proto-Indo-European. If you've clicked on this video, I'm assuming you already have a basic idea of what Proto-Indo-European is. If not, it is the hypothetical reconstructed language that is the ancestor of the Indo-European languages. So English, Gaelic, Russian, Spanish, French, all the Romance languages, all the Germanic languages, Hindi, Farsi, etc. All of these have the same common ancestor. And linguists are able to very systematically study these languages, their similarities and differences, the patterns between their similarities and differences, the way they've changed through time, and they're able to reconstruct the ancestor language, or at least many aspects of the ancestor language. And today, the aspect of that language that we're discussing is called ablaut. Now, what is ablaut? I want to start by saying that this is a term that is very specific to Indo-European studies. It needs to be related to the phenomenon that was originally present in Proto-Indo-European. In the least specific terms possible, it is an example of non-concatenative morphology. So to break that down, morphology is the shape of words. It's the way that words are formed and the way that they inflect. Concatenative means adding prefixes, suffixes, infixes, adding little bits to words, and then non-concatenative means not doing that. So non-concatenative morphology is ways of forming words and changing words and giving information that does not involve adding anything to the word, like on the ends or anything. Instead, it usually involves changing the vowels within the root itself. So Arabic does this a lot. In Arabic, the word for book is kitab. This book is my main source for this video. It's very good. Indo-European language and culture, Benjamin Fortson IV, so I recommend that. In Arabic, kitab is the singular version of that word. In English, we add a suffix, book, books. But in Arabic, they instead change the vowels within the root, so it becomes kutub. I don't really speak Arabic at all. So English does this as well. Man becomes men, mouse becomes mice. However, neither vowel change in Arabic nor mice and men are examples of ablaut. That is because ablaut has to be genetically related to ablaut that was present in Proto-Indo-European. So what did Proto-Indo-European ablaut look like? First, let me give you a general overview, and then I will fill in the blanks with examples. So in any given root, the standard basic vowel is assumed to be a short E sound. And that short E can be swapped out with a long E, with a short O, with a long O, or it can be removed and there will be no vowel at all. So there are basically 5 different variants of any given root. And these 5 variants are known as grades. So the variant with the short E is often known as the full grade, although it's also called the E grade. The version with the long E is known as the lengthened full grade or the lengthened E grade. The variant with the short O is called the O grade. The variant with the long O is called the lengthened O grade. And the variant with no vowel at all is called the 0 grade. If that just seems like a lot of information, don't worry, I'm going to illustrate. An extremely common ablaut pattern is found in the thematic present, which is a conjugation pattern named for the thematic vowel inserted between the verbal root and the personal endings. That thematic vowel is going to be a short O in the first persons and in the third person plural, and it is going to be a short E elsewhere. And that alternation between the E and the O is ablaut. Let's look at the reconstructed Proto-Indo-European root for transport, weg. So if I want to say I transport, I'm going to insert a short O between the verbal root and the personal ending, which is the laryngeal sound. So it becomes weggo. And if I want to say you transport, I'm now inserting a short E in between the verbal root and the personal ending C. So wegkesi. This ablaut pattern has been preserved in many descendants of Proto-Indo-European. So one Greek dialect that preserved this root had wecho, I transport, weches, you transport. Latin, vecho, vechis. Ukrainian, vezu, vezesh. So you can see that that pattern is still present. It's still alive and well, and it is an example of ablaut. The alternative to the thematic present is the athematic present, where no vowel is inserted between the root and the endings. Instead, the root itself ablauts. And in the athematic present, the singular conjugations are in the full grade with a short E, and the plural conjugations are in the zero grade with no vowel. So we can use the verb to be as an example. In Proto-Indo-European, I am, you are, he is. So the singular conjugations, those are going to be hesmi, hesti, hesti. So the two consonants of the root, the laryngeal and the S, have a short E inserted between them. In the plural, that vowel is going to be deleted and they will be in the zero grade. So we are, y'all are, they are is going to be sme, ste, senti. There is no longer a vowel between those two consonants. Instead, they run right into each other. This is an example of ablaut. This time it's between the full grade and the zero grade. Unfortunately, this example is a little bit difficult to illustrate in the daughter languages because that initial laryngeal tended to either vocalize to an E or become lost entirely. But you can see a hint of it if you look at Latin est, he is, versus sunt, they are. Compare that to Proto-Indo-European hesti versus senti. And you can see that if the initial laryngeal just completely melted away, the Latin verbs would still start with the same vowel. So hesti versus est, senti versus sunt. Same with Sanskrit, asti versus santi. An unusual type of athematic present is called the Nartan present, where instead of the ablaut variation being between the full grade in the singular and the zero grade in the plural, it is between the lengthened full grade in the singular and the regular full grade in the plural. An example is the verb tetk, which meant to create or cut. And in the singular, that would have been tetkti, so that's with a lengthened E vowel. And in the plural, it would be tetkinti with a short E vowel. And the Nartan presents are not very common, but it does give us 3 examples of ablaut patterns. So between E and O, between full grade and O grade in the thematic present, between full grade and zero grade in the athematic present, and between lengthened full grade and regular full grade in the Nartan present. Ablaut was not just a feature of verbs in Proto-Indo-European, it was a widespread feature of the language. My goal here is not to give you a comprehensive synchronic view of how ablaut was used in Proto-Indo-European, nor could I do that. I want to give you more of an idea of how it can affect Indo-European studies. And one of the major ways that is true is that different words within a language and among the daughter languages can be descended from different grades of a root in Indo-European. And so when you're looking at a word in an Indo-European language, obviously it's good to know what root that word originally came from, but it's also very helpful to know what grade of that root the word came from, and that explains a lot about what we see in the Indo-European languages. So in English, the verb bind comes from the E grade of the Indo-European root pend. The nouns bond and band both come from the O grade, and the word bound comes from the zero grade. Likewise, sing comes from the E grade, song and sing come from the O grade, and sung comes from the zero grade. You will notice that even though the zero grade did not have a vowel in Proto-Indo-European, many words that descend from the zero grade roots have vowels. So from a word like wilkos, meaning wolf, which originally had a syllabic L and was in the zero grade, you get Greek lukos, Latin lupus, Russian volk, German wolf. There are vowels. However, in Czech, this word still has a syllabic L, so it's vlk. And in Hindi, there is also a descendant of the word wilkos, which is something like vrk, with a syllabic R sound instead. You'll also notice a lot of variation in how the original vowel grades turned out among the different daughter languages and even within them. If you take a lengthened O grade root like vox, that became vox in Latin, ops in Greek, avos in Persian, and voice in English. Versus another lengthened O grade root, pods, became pes in Latin, pos in Greek, paw in Persian, and foot in English. Voice and foot come from the same original vowel grade, but they have very different outcomes. One of the reasons is that voice came to English through French, whereas foot is a Germanic word, but that's not the only reason. So many things have changed. So much has changed since our linguistic ancestors were trampling the steppes, and there's just change upon change upon change. You might have been surprised, for example, when I mentioned that the word bounds comes from the 0 grade. It's such a crazy diphthong. How did that come from nothing? Basically, in that case, Germanic added a short U vowel where the 0 grade had been. So, for example, German unten would have had that little short U, and then English ended up breaking that vowel sound into a diphthong later on. There's all kinds of examples of this. It would be so nice to say, whenever you see such and such a vowel in such and such a language, that means it comes from this original vowel grade. That is very, very rarely the case, if ever. It's very complicated. Anyways, that is enough for now. I hope you found this informative or helpful in some way. Thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely day.